welcome back to another episode of The Mother You Know, The Woman You Don't. Thank you so much for tuning in again this week. And thank you, Molly, for joining us today. We have a friend of mine, Molly, who we've met. I was trying to think, I guess this is the sixth grade because we met in band and we were in band together all through high school, which means that we spent probably the majority of our lives together from sixth grade to 12th grade.
Yep.
And then, you went off to college and I had kids and then you had kids. We've had lives, but we always, seem to stay in touch. And it's just, you're one of those friends that it's like that good old adage where you don't have to talk every day. You don't have to see each other every day, but you can get together. We got together 2 Saturdays ago with some other friends that we've been friends with for 30 years and sat all day and had wine and food and just did all the good stuff. So it's just one of those really good friendships that low maintenance, don't have to do a ton, always there and always good. So
Low maintenance and nobody gets mad about it.
yeah, no, nobody cares. That's kind of that's my life base right now. It's just low maintenance. So I appreciate you coming on and telling us your story. So why don't you start out by telling us, where you were born and tell us a little bit about your mom and dad, what you know about their history, where they met, and tell us about your family growing up. And then we'll talk a little bit about your story.
Okay. Well, I was born in Houston. My mom and dad, they met in high school. They lived in Shepherd, Texas, and that's where they met. My mom is from a pretty big family. She's the youngest not the youngest, I'm sorry. That's me. There are 7, I believe, kids in her family. And then my dad, he had 2 brothers. And so growing up, we would always we kind of tended more towards my mom's side of the family just because it was bigger. Both grandmothers lived in the same town. They lived I don't know, maybe 3 minutes from each other. My dad's dad died before I was born, so I only knew my grandmother from that side of the family. And then my grandfather died, I think in 1977. So I think I was around 3 years old when he died. And so that grandmother we were very close to. And then we were close to my dad's, I think they were his aunt and uncle. We always called them Aunt Jewel and Uncle Joe. I think they kind of raised him when he was younger. He went and stayed with them a lot. Also, they're in Shepherd. And then I am the youngest of 6 kids. I have 3 older brothers and 2 older sisters. My oldest sister is about 20 years older than I am. So I kind of really always had 2 moms growing up.
Yeah.
And then I am closer in age to my niece than I am any of my siblings. So even the sister that's just younger than me, there's 8 years in between us.
So were you planned or were you an accident or a happy accident or
I don't even really know. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I always just kind of assumed I wasn't planned.
Yeah.
Because my mom was 40 when she had me, but I don't really know. I would have to ask my siblings that. I should ask them, but I don't know. I guess maybe I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Well, Dwayne, I had no idea that you had other siblings. I guess because, again, maybe that age discrepancy, and especially that age gap, I just assumed you were your mom's only baby. I had no.
So I was
something, no idea. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. That was that face. I was like, really?
Yeah. So I was born in December of 1974, and my sister got married in February of 1975. My sister and brother-in-law have a picture on their wedding day, underneath the arch thing, whatever, with him in his, tuxedo with the ruffles on it. And her hair parted down the middle. She has dark black hair parted down the middle, along with her veil and everything else. And she's holding a baby. My brother-in-law always kept that picture on his desk at work. And people would, back in the late 1970s, early 1980s, they would be like, is that your daughter? Or, something like that. And he was like, no, that's my sister-in-law. I'm 2 months old. I'm 2 months. I actually have it on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm 2 months old, but I'm his sister-in-law.
Yeah.
That's what we need to use for the thumbnail of the episode. Is that?
I'm going to find it because I know she just sent it to me not too long ago.
Yeah.
Because I asked her, I was like, I need that picture. But and then so she was out of the house already. And then I don't remember exactly what age I was when my brothers moved out. And so then it was just Julie and I. And Julie was 8 years older than I am, but she got married when I was about 10, I think. And so from 10 on, I was pretty much the only one at home. I had one brother that would kind of come back and forth from home or, living somewhere else. But for the most part, it was me. This is not the one that I wanted to show y'all, but this is just her and me on the wedding day.
That's so funny. We'll definitely have to use this.
So, and then let's see, my dad died when I was 8, I think about to be 9, or maybe 9, about to be 10. So he died in 84. So I guess I was about to be 10 because I was born in 74. I think I was in 3rd grade. Expected. He had some health issues. He had a heart issue and had multiple heart attacks before. But then, I remember my mom talking about how the doctor said, he had to lose weight. He had to quit smoking. He smoked cigars. I think he had smoked cigarettes in his lifetime. And he had started going to the high school track and walking and losing weight and things like that, and quit smoking to my knowledge. I think he still dipped. And then my mom and I were at home. I was in the bathtub one night, and that bathtub in that house the bathroom was on the front of the house. And he had come home from walking at the track, and my mom had made dinner. I think I had already eaten. I was in the bathtub playing, and remember looking and seeing lights outside, or the colors of the lights bounce off the wall. And so I got out of the bathtub, still had shampoo in my hair, towel around me, and Patsy and Alan, who were our neighbors across the street, were standing in the entryway. And I didn't know what was going on, And so they took me back, or Patsy took me back into the bathroom and told me to finish, getting the shampoo out of my hair or whatever. But my dad had a heart attack in the playroom, which we called the playroom, was our garage. It was converted into another room because my mom kept kids at home. And so my dad had quit working his regular job years before that. And on the side, he bought and sold cattle for a family. I don't remember exactly where they lived, but kind of managed their property and their cattle. So that's what he did on the side. So my mom was really the only one officially working, I guess, back then. But he had a heart attack in the playroom. And, after that, I guess there was, not any kind of brain activity or anything. My mom made the decision, just, I don't want to say pull the plug. That sounds horrible, but
Yeah.
turn everything off, I guess. I don't know another way to say that.
Yeah.
So that was in 84. And then it was just me and my mom. Like I said, sometimes my brother would come in, and stay. He was kind of back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you remember about that time immediately after that about your mom? 'Cause to me, your mom was always really strong and stoic. I don't know. I don't remember, you know, strong. I just remember her being
Yeah.
strong,
Yeah.
not unusually funny or, whatever. I don't remember.
Nope.
I just remember she
That's
was always
pretty much right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just always
Yeah.
remember her being so business. She was
Uh-huh.
kind. She was
Uh-huh.
always nice to us, but just very straightforward, very business. So what was that time like after that? Do you think that changed her personality, or was she just always?
I mean, I'm not sure. I don't remember much of what her personality was like. She loved the kids that she kept, and all the families that she kept knew that. Melissa was one that would come in and out. Melissa's daycare person, when she would go on vacation, they would come over. They kind of took turns doing that kind of stuff. And so I know that the families that brought their kids to my mom, they loved her. She never did things. We would go do things together, of course, as a family. And I know that she had friends, I assume probably more than what I know or remember. I don't, but we were involved in church. We went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And that was kind of, she went to church and she went to the grocery store. Those were the kind of places that she went. Like I said, I don't ever recall. I know that she, had some friends that she was still friends with in high school, and she would talk about them, but I don't ever remember her going to see them or them coming to see us. So I don't know much about her social life, and she didn't really talk. She
Yeah.
didn't really talk about it, but she never dated. Never dated, to my knowledge. My dad was the only man that she ever dated or ever loved.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that's a good thing? Or do you think
I'm
it's
sorry.
just, do you think it's a good thing? Or do you wish she had, I don't know, dated or gone out or,
I don't know. You know, I think that it's hard for me to say. I don't know if she would have been happier. Was she happy not dating? Times were so different back then. Like, it's not like it is today. Like, unless she met somebody at church or met somebody at the grocery store, she wasn't
true.
going to meet anybody, you know?
Or she like the
So,
rest of us where she's like, I'm gonna do this
Well,
one and then I ain't doing nothing else.
maybe she decided that.
What,
Or
Mom?
maybe,
no online dating then.
No.
no. Or maybe her focus at that point was just me. I mean, she had grandkids at that point, or she had one. Candy was already born at that point. Kellen, my nephew, my other nephew, was already born at that point too. So I guess there were two grandkids. So, you know, and my sisters both lived very close to us. And so, you know, we would go do things together. But she worked from, 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. And so that didn't really leave much time for her to do anything else. So
What kind of things do you think what's one lesson do you think you learned from your mother that when you think about like, or how many times a day do you open your mouth and hear your mother come out? To me, the fact that you're, an administrator in a school seems to be very fitting. To me, you have that same stoic. Now, I get to see you be fun and laugh and cut up, which, I never saw with your mom, but you have that same stoic thing. There's things that you say, and it makes me like get in line. Like she'll say something, I'm like, "Ooh, yes, ma'am, okay," because you got that
yeah.
principal thing going. So, what kind of things do you learn from your mom?
I mean, it's probably taken me this long to kind of look back and think on certain things. But, there are times when I think, when I'm tracking Shelby, who's 20,
Yeah.
and think, oh my gosh, our parents, we just would leave and they thought they knew where we were going because, we went where we told them, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
And that's my
daughter.
daughter. Yes. And she's 20. And, I used to think it was ridiculous that my mom would wait up on me to come in. I'm like, just go to bed. Like, I'll be fine. I'll be home. And now, like, when I'm still awake at 2 o'clock in AM and I'm looking on my phone to see where she is, I think she didn't have that luxury. And now I understand why she waited up for me to get home.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lesson that you never sleep again, even when they're adults. Because even now, I'll know that Cody doesn't even live here, and I'll him and Kaylin are off, and I'm like, they're like, oh, we're going so and so, and I'm like tracking to make sure they got there, and they're both 23. Like they don't
Yeah.
need me to track, make sure
Yeah.
they're there, but or they'll go, oh well, we'll be home around 1, and I'll still be up going, well, did y'all get home? Y'all don't
I
even live
know.
here. Yeah.
Like, you could just text me, just send me a text,
Yeah.
let me know.
Yeah. And even
Yeah, I
now
think
with Life 360, mom does, mom can see where me and Lydia are all the time.
It's what we can see where they are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
vice versa.
it really is for them.
I'm
I
like,
always tell,
what are y'all doing? Where are you going?
yeah, I
You
always tell
show-
Shelby, that's for me to track you, not for you to track me.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
time. One time, Eric and I were eating dinner somewhere, and Shelby just walked in, and we were like, what? But she had tracked where we were and decided
Yeah.
to come have dinner with us.
She
Yeah.
was hungry. Good.
That's
So
awesome.
what kind of traditions do you think you took from your family that you passed on to your kids? Is there anything in particular that your mom did growing up or your family did that you do with your kids?
I would have to say one of our biggest traditions was our Thanksgiving. We always had it at the church where my mom, now she didn't go to church there when we lived in North Shore, but it's where her family went to church, and they had a little metal building, fellowship hall, whatever you want to call it, in the back. And it was the only place big enough to house all of us because nobody's house was big enough. because of the 7 siblings that my mom had, or the 7 of them total, and they all had kids, and then their kids had kids, and all of us, it was nothing for there to be 150 people at Thanksgiving. And we still do that today, like even after my grandmother has died.
Yeah.
My mom, I just sent my sisters a text earlier, and because last year they had said, this is probably going to be the last year that we do this, we kind of kept it going, and then I wasn't able to make it. And so I sent my sister a text earlier, and I'm like, are we all doing Thanksgiving in Shepherd this year? And she said, I think so. And because there are still 3 of my mom's siblings that are still living, they're all her sisters. She's the only sister that's passed. So even the oldest one out of all of them is still alive, and there's 2 others. So if we got together, it would be mainly for my Aunt Marialis. She only had 1 son who has passed, but she has some grandkids. She actually lives with her oldest grandson now in Liberty Hill.
Yeah.
They just moved there recently.
Oh,
So
okay.
if we did get together, it would be for her, but they all still get together. I can't say that we don't have any traditions, but that one is the one that I think of the most. I made some peas yesterday. We went to the Scarecrow Festival
Mhm.
on Saturday, and I wanted to stop at Delorio's in Hempstead and go to the farmer's market, because that's about the only place that I can find frozen purple whole peas, which are my favorite because they're what my grandmother made and then my mom made. And now that's one of my favorite dishes. I make it a whole meal when there's cornbread in it.
Yeah.
So, but neither one of my kids like purple whole peas. My sister makes the closest chicken and dumplings to my grandmother. It's not
Mhm.
quite the same, but it's close.
Never is the
But
same.
it's not quite the same, but it's close. But, with even with as big of a family as we had, I don't want to say we didn't have any traditions. After my mom moved from North Shore, she sold our house right after I graduated high school and left to go to college. She sold our house. And since then, we've been doing Christmas at the house that she had in Shepherd. So we would always do Thanksgiving at the fellowship hall,
Yeah.
but then Christmas, we would do it at my mom's house.
Yeah. And I didn't realize your mom was from Shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
I think I
Yeah,
couldn't figure out, because that's where she moved back to, right? And where she was
yes.
for the rest of her life was
Yeah.
there in Shepherd. I couldn't figure out why she ended up there. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, she moved into she originally moved to Livingston and was in an apartment there. And then my great aunt and great uncle, my Aunt Jewel and Uncle Joe, were kind of getting up there in age. So she moved in to kind of help take care of them, and then just never left. My Uncle Joe died, and then she had to kind of care for my Aunt Jewel. And then she stayed in that house. So that house was left for her. And it was right across the street from her mother, my grandmother. And so it was just easy. She, had her mom right across the street from her.
Yeah. And how long? She just passed away
My
last year,
mom
right?
in
How old was she?
2021,
Yeah.
and she was 79, I believe.
Yeah.
I would have to do the math, but
Yeah.
I think she was still in her late 70s.
Yeah. Yeah. And doesn't that feel, we keep saying this over and over, because I found out my grandma died at 68, my other grandpa died at 68. Like, it feels like that feels young. Like, doesn't it feel when you hit 50, 79 feels
I know.
like,
And
When you're
I think I'm
72, I don't feel so far away.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She after so she sold her house there in Shepherd, and my brother and sister-in-law, she was going to go live with them, and they bought a house in New Caney, and it had kind of like one of those mother-in-law suites on it. And so she had like 2 bedrooms, her own living area, her own bathroom, full bathroom, her own washer and dryer. So still kind of had some of that independence. If she, didn't want to be around anybody, she could go in there and watch TV, or if she wanted company, she could have company. It was just my brother and sister-in-law at that point. And then my other brother lived with them too. They had a 3-bedroom apartment over their garage. And so he was kind of their backup support. His daughter is grown and he is not currently married. So it was just him. So he was and he also lived with my mom before that, and kind of just I don't want to say took care of her, because at that point she didn't really need somebody to take care of her. He was just there, to kind of keep an eye on her. And so he moved into the 3-car garage or a 3-car apartment over the garage. And that's where she stayed until the day she passed. She passed in the house, the, what do you call that when you call hospice? Hospice was called in, and it was less than 24 hours. And so my sister-in-law, my brother certainly did the majority of the caregiving, because she was in their home. And at that point, I was still raising Shelby. Like, she was still at home. She was still in high school. So I had that going on. So I was the only one still with a younger kid. But we would take turns. I would go out maybe one weekend every couple of weeks, 6 weeks or so. And just everybody kind of rotate to kind of give Ken and Karen that opportunity to, if they needed to, if they wanted to go somewhere, they could go somewhere.
Yeah.
And not be worried about her.
Can you imagine how only children navigate that? Like, it's for just one person. Yeah, we've had I think Shane on here, and she's the primary caregiver. And just talking about how hard it is to do that one. You're just a constant caregiver of that, and it's
And
hard.
especially if there's 2 parents to be the caregiver too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Child to the parent of your parents.
Yeah.
Gotta be
that's hard.
challenging. Yeah.
And I mean, I will never take credit for any of that, because my time there was always limited. It was a night. It was 2 nights.
Yeah.
And then I still always had my brother there, to help support, when she needed help getting to the bathroom or going to the bathroom or getting out of the bathroom. He did not want to do that part, which is understandable. She didn't want him to do that part, which is also understandable. But, helping her with everything. But she was pretty good up until she fell and broke her hip. And that was, man, I believe it was in October of 19 or October of 20. It must have been 19.
Yeah.
Was that during COVID? Is that when COVID?
No,
hit?
2020 was hard. COVID. 2020 was
Okay,
COVID.
so then maybe it was 2020, because I remember that was another thing that we had to navigate, was her in the hospital with a broken hip during COVID. Who can go, who can't go, getting her to a facility for the rehab. That was difficult. And they finally allowed us to keep her at that hospital and go to the rehab there. All of just navigating all of that. She was in rehab for a lot longer than what she should have been, because she was just scared. Also, she had Parkinson's disease.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, her memory was pretty good up until the end. She had tremors real bad, just like my grandmother. I can remember growing up, sitting at my grandmother's big round brown table, and when she would eat, her spoon or whatever was just clanging on that, on that bowl as she was eating. And I remember when my mom told us that she had Parkinson's, or mosquito, when she had Parkinson's, and she acted surprised that the doctor told her that she had stage 2 Parkinson's. And I'm like, really? Because we all knew that, because you shake just like grandmommy,
Yeah.
we were not surprised by it. I think she was surprised by it. But I finally got her back to my sister-in-law and brother's house, and things were okay. But she, after she broke that hip, she never had the confidence again to walk. She was always scared. And so I think that made things worse, because then she wasn't walking. And so then you lose all that muscle tone and everything else. And there were some other medical problems that were going on that, we just didn't, I don't want to say we didn't deal with, but they were bigger than what we could deal with the shape that she was in. So, but she passed peacefully in a home, not, her home, which is what we all preferred. I don't think none of us wanted to go into where we had to send her somewhere.
Yeah. No, it's better. I guess it's better if it brings y'all peace. If you got that peace, that's fantastic that y'all had that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you remember, you think about, like, if you said she, was scared to worry about moving again. And I think, years ago, you would think, come on, get up, let's go. You got to move. And I know that there's certain shoes I can't wear because I've fallen once, and I'm thinking, I'm not wearing those shoes again. And I'm only 40, whatever. So you understand that fear of, especially now that you get older, and you take a shower wrong and your shoulder hurts.
Sometimes
You're
if I sit too long, getting up
Yeah.
is hard. I can't talk to kindergartners, on the ground anymore like I used to be able
Yeah.
to do, unless I'm close to a table and can get help, hold on to something to get myself up.
Yeah. So then you really understand that and go, you know what? It's fine. Don't get it.
It's okay. They were cute.
What, Lydia?
Me
Yeah.
too.
This is where we stay now. So of our friend group, so let's back up a little bit. So of our friend group, I think you are the only one of our friends that, well, when I say friends, I just mean me, you and Melissa, I guess. Well, thinking about it, even with all the five of us, you're the only one that went to college and you went and of all our friend group, you went away, like away, away. So I always thought that was a big deal, that you left the state, and went to college. So for you, I don't know, I guess, because like for me, we talk about we didn't talk a whole lot about going to college when we were in high school and the next, step, there was never really that discussion or whatever. So was that discussion there for you with your mom or what made you want to do that? Um, and golf, because to me, it's hard for me to even fathom kids living, like where I living in Denver, soul crushing for me, soul crushing. So what was
Mhm.
that like for you and for her, you going off to college and leaving the state? I just think it's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, so I went to Harding University, and Harding is kind of like Abilene Christian. It's affiliated with the Church of Christ. And growing up in the Church of Christ, our youth ministers, I couldn't think of the name, went to Harding University. And so one of the things that we always did during the spring is we went to Harding and we stayed at Demery and Mike's, was actually Mike's mom's house. So they have a thing every spring called Spring Sing, and it's where the fraternities and sororities, they call them clubs. They didn't really call them fraternities and sororities,
Yeah.
put on a production every year, and it was always the big thing. And so it was also like, I don't remember what they called it, but it was kind of where people were always visiting during that time. And so Mike and Demery would always take us up there, and I fell in love with the campus. It's a beautiful campus. It's north of Little Rock, in a place called Searcy, Arkansas, or the foothills of the Ozarks.
Lovely.
And it was just beautiful, and I loved it there. And that's where I decided to go. Of course, my mom wanted me to go to Stephen F. Austin or things like that so I could be closer. And growing up like an only child, but not an only child whose mom doesn't have a husband or a boyfriend, I became her companion. And that's not so fun for a young teenager, who wants to be living like a teenager. And so I was bound and determined to put as much distance between us as I could.
Yeah.
Which I still don't think that was a bad thing for me. It might have been devastating for her, but I think it's probably what I needed. And I also knew that I probably, if I was going to make college work for me with not being at home, I needed to be far enough away from home to where it wasn't convenient for me to just come back all the time. And I did. I went away for 4 years and graduated in 4 years. And then, I came back a lot to visit.
That's what I hear.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I came back a lot to visit during those 4 years. But it was, what I needed. Graduated with my teaching degree and came back here and got a job at North Shore Elementary.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you've been a teacher and administrator ever since, right?
Yep. I spent 2 years at North Shore Elementary and then switched to Cy-Fair ISD and was a teacher. I taught first grade, I taught second grade, I taught fourth grade. And then I became an instructional coach, where a math coach, well, I only did math for that, but there was a lot of turnover at my school teacher-wise. So it's like new teachers every year. And so just coaching them and modeling teaching for them in the morning, or modeling a lesson for them in the morning and then watching them do it in the afternoon, especially if they, switch classes. and then providing them feedback on that. And then a couple of years after that, I became an instructional specialist for all the subjects, and did that for a year or two. And then went through a divorce. And actually, before I went through the divorce, I decided I probably needed to go back to school and get my master's degree. And so I did that. I finished my master's degree in 13 months while working full time, while going through a divorce, and while learning how to be a single mom.
Yeah.
So there are certainly times I do not ever want to repeat. Now, if I have to stop on the way home from the grocery store, I'm mad. Yeah. Sometimes I think about that and I'm like,
Yeah.
how did I do it? How did I do it? Going to work all day. Luckily, I had fantastic neighbors who just became family. And, Seth would ride the bus home. Sam and Virginia would pick up Shelby from school while I went to school. Luckily, I had a cohort through Sam Houston State. This is really back before there was online school. Like you could do things online, but not like what we have today. This was in 2009. So I was part of a cohort through Sci-Fair that was run by Sam Houston State. So the professors actually came to us. And so we would meet on a high school campus, and there were probably about 30 of us within the district who were all going for our master's degree. And so we would meet 2 times a week and then work on the weekends. And then during the summer, we went a whole lot more than that. But so that was a great experience. I met a lot of people that I'm still friends with today who are all still administrators.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really funny because Missy and I joke a lot that Molly's our smart friend. Like she's the responsible one. Just because we'll be texting during the day, and she's like, Molly hasn't answered. I was like, because she has a real job. She's dealing with kids, bro. She's raising the future. You and I are not doing that.
But you know what? It's so funny because it's like, I feel like y'all are the ones with the real jobs.
Really?
I just go to school every day. I have to go to school every day. I'm done with school.
We're not shaping kids over here, okay? Keeping engineers fed. That's
Respect to you, Molly, because I
yeah,
could like
I know.
I was a principal and assistant principal too. So for respect for all those teachers out there, because you have to really want to do it. My friend Lauren is a teacher. You have to really want to do it. And like that was never my thing. I think you talk about like they expected, like when you went to college, it was expected you're gonna be a teacher. And I was like, I don't like anybody's children, but like mine and my sister and my nephews. And that's about it. Maybe I just could whatever God gave y'all, good job. For you.
I don't even know when I decided to go to be a teacher. It was just kind of like, well, I guess that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. What did you go to school for? Just general education or general
education?
Yeah.
And I started out as a second grade teacher at North Shore Elementary, and then I changed to first grade. And like I said, I moved on and taught first grade, taught second grade, and then taught fourth grade, was a coach. And then after I graduated in August of, I think, 2010, I taught another year because I graduated so late. Nobody was willing to hire me because I hadn't graduated yet. Nobody was really willing to hire me as an AP because I didn't have my certification yet. So even though I had my degree, I had not taken my certification test yet. And so I took that. And so then it was the next year that I was eligible to be an assistant principal. And luckily, I had come across a principal within the district who we had been on a couple of committees together that my principal at the time had asked me to be on with him. And so that's how I got to know her. And she had actually tried to recruit me a couple of times for different positions. And I just wasn't willing to leave the school that I was at. I just loved it so much. It was 99% economically disadvantaged. We had 17 apartment complexes, only one neighborhood really, and 40% mobility. So the number of kids that we would start with at the beginning of the year, we probably only had about 60% of those kids at the end of the year. And it was another new 40%. It was all subsidized housing. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into my years there, but I loved it. But she reached out to me and told me that she was going to have an opening for an assistant principal, and told me I should apply. So I did. And I've been there ever since.
Yeah.
So it was a brand new school. They had been open for 1 year. So I've been there all but 1 year. And this is my 14th year there. And I only have this full year left. And then I'm eligible for retirement in January of 2026.
You're kind of filling out that paperwork, haven't you? It's just sitting in your desk.
I've been on that TEA calculator so many times. It's not funny. So
So do you think
yeah.
you'll retire then? Or are you going to retire then, you think? Or maybe you don't know?
My head tells me yes, like I'm so ready to retire. But then I'm
Yeah.
like, I still gotta work. Like, what am I
Yeah.
gonna do? I don't know how to do
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you need me to manage 100 women and 1,200 kids for you, I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can do that. But I don't know anything about any other business. I don't know anything about the oil and gas business. I don't know anything.
Well, just so
I-
you know, as a HR person, that is a skill set. Okay. You can take that skill set and move it anywhere. Because the
Well,
things
and
I've
that's,
done,
Yeah.
and that's what I feel like.
Me and I didn't know what I was doing, and you like taught people. Like I had to
Yeah.
Google how to do
Yeah.
stuff. That's what you
Right.
did.
Like, I feel like I could run a company's like professional development for them, like their onboarding. Like, here's our company, here's our brand, here's, all this, here's that. But, other than that, I don't know anything about
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
when it
Well, let me
comes
just tell
to
you that.
real world jobs.
Oh, let me just tell you, it
One
feels
for-
like that at our age, we're not the same 50-year-olds that our mothers were. And don't take that wrong, Mom.
I agree with
There's
you. Like,
there's so many more opportunities
really
now.
smart.
Well,
When you're
I don't know if it's a smarter thing. I think that our age right now has more opportunity. There's just so much to do, just like this. This was literally a wild hair project that I never would have done on my own without Lydia having the background she has and saying, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And it's just been an out of the box thing that is in my brain. And I keep telling Lydia, I call her all the time. I go, hey, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And she's like, hey, slow down. Let's try to get 30 people to listen to the podcast. But I just think that we've got so many more opportunities now. And so much of your skill set is, I think, probably way more marketable than you think it would be. And I think, retire and then figure out what you like. Because I really like this medium. I like doing it. I like the work of it. I like trying to figure it out and all that, which is completely not a skill we have. Like you spent 15 minutes trying to get the sound on today. So there's that. But I just think we have more opportunities, and then I don't think we're smarter. I just think our age group can see the opportunities maybe.
about being brave. It's about being brave and willing to try those things, and knowing that it may not work out, or it may, you could embarrass yourself. Like when you look, especially you look at the world today and you hear about things like social media influencers and people putting us putting ourselves out there and telling our stories. There's a bravery to that. And I can admit that I'm the first person to admit that, the people who would be social media influencers and putting themselves out there and putting their lives out there, like I like low key judge them. I did. But you have to be brave and you have to be fearless to do that. So that is so admirable. And so I no longer judge those people. Like if I see somebody making content in public, I'm like, good for you, girl. Good for you. Make that money. You do you. But you have to be brave and not worry about what people think. Because like Dorcas isn't doing something like this, getting out there, people telling their stories, being vulnerable. There could be, there could be judgment. There could be anger. We've seen that.
Well, you've seen that too. We'll get to Eric in a minute, but
God.
you've seen that too. So, but I mean, that. But there's just so many, opportunities now, and I guess, especially after doing this for however many months we've been doing it, and I would say, girl, just take your skill and go do something else. Just pick whatever. It's just like it's your oyster.
Well, and I also think that if I get a job and I don't like it, I just quit.
Yeah.
You
get to try all kinds of stuff.
I'm not relying on that job for an income.
Yeah.
I have my retirement, which is not going to be, my full salary, but, I am married now.
Yeah.
Whereas, 3 years ago, I was
Yeah.
thinking I'm going to have to work until I am 80, until I get
Yeah.
that 100%,
Yeah.
a retirement. That's how long I'm going to have to work. But, now I don't feel that way anymore. I don't have that
Yeah.
thought. And
Yeah.
that is like, I don't know, there's a whole different level of freeing about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I've always said, whatever my next job is, I'm probably going to make more money than I was making in education.
Listen, let me tell you, Dwayne was he used to work for Harris County forever, and he was just miserable. I mean, miserable. Like, it got to the point where he was just done. And he retired, which we both knew because we bought this house 5 years ago, that we were not set up where we could just retire. Can't do that. But he ended up getting a job at the school district, and he's the crossing guard for a school district, and he loves it. Like, he's loved that job. It's the best. He's been happier than he's ever been. He's the happiest he's ever been, and he makes more money now as a crossing guard with his retirement that he did at the county. It's the craziest thing because they pay a ridiculous amount of money for bus drivers and crossing guards out here.
I might be driving out there and be a crossing guard with.
And he loves it. Like, he just has the best time. It's He just is so happy now. And I told him, well, I guess I'd rather you do that than, make it just, or just having that stability. It's that stability. I think if you could set yourself up, like you said, with your retirement, then the world is yours to just go try and do whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I just
that's
have to
exciting.
imagine that any kind of professional job probably makes more money than what I do. After 28 years and in administration, I have to imagine that probably most professional jobs of people who are, our age make
Yeah.
more than what I do.
Yeah. 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 It's out there. Let's just say it's out there. And I think you're highly marketable and very professional. Like I said, I always tell her, Molly's got a real job, y'all. She's doing real work in the world.
But hey,
Call her later.
I'm doing the Lord's work. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So I guess let's back up again. And tell me about, so you went to college, you come home. You were married to your first husband. What year did y'all get married?
We got married the same year that I graduated, so 1997. I
Okay.
met Toby in between my junior and senior year of college. And then we kind of long distance dated. Clearly, I should have thought better about that. But then we got married in July after I graduated. So graduated in May of 1997 and got married in July of 1997.
Yeah. And then
So
how long were y'all married?
we were married until, I can't even remember if it was 2000. It had to be 2010 that we got
Yeah.
divorced. So early
Okay.
2010.
Okay. And what year did you have? Because you have two kids. So you have Seth.
Seth was born in 1999. Shelby was born in 2004.
Okay. So 1999. So you have Seth. And let's see. So you grew up with brothers and sisters. Having a boy around was no big deal. So how was it? What was your early experiences as a mother? How did you like being a mom?
Well, I can remember I wanted to have a girl first, and I cried when I found out it was going to be a boy. But I think that really was because Toby had a son from a previous marriage, Stephen, who was almost 4 when we got married. He would have turned 4 in August. And I don't know, I wanted to have a girl. But then, my whole thought process changed after that. After I found out it was a boy, I was like, that's great, because then if I do have another one, she has older brothers, whatever. He was the best kid. Like, he was a good baby. He didn't really sleep through the night until he was probably like 2 years old. But I mean, other than that, he was a good kid. Never really gave me any trouble in no, not real trouble. Like, it seemed like
Just
it was
boy
real trouble back
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
but nothing real significant. And even in high school, he was such a charmer that, I never really knew how he was getting his grades because he never did any work. His teachers just loved him. Like, he was the kid everybody loved. And then, his senior year, well, he came home his freshman year in high school, like right before school started, or maybe the first couple of days. I don't remember, and said he wanted to try out for the football team. And I was like, I mean, you've never played football before. We were always kind of a baseball family. It's what they played growing up, or what he played growing up, was baseball. I was like, "You've never played football before." And he's like, "I know, I just want to try out." And I was like, "All right, go for it." Thinking in my head, this is high school football. Like this is big time. And I remember asking him, I'm like, "Hey, how did you do at tryouts?" And he's like, "Oh, I made quarterback of the freshman team." And I was like, how do you do that?" So anyway, so he was quarterback of the freshman team, sophomore, and then he played up until his junior year. And that's when once he was on varsity, he was like, "I'm not going to get any play time." Like he wasn't, he was second, third string maybe. And so he also knew that at that point, that he wanted to be a Marine and wanted to focus more on that. And they have their, I can't even remember what it's called, some program where the recruiter comes and picks them up, and kind of gets them ready for boot camp. Like there's the running and it wasn't ROTC. I don't remember what it was called. The pulley program, pulley. I don't know what it meant, but and the recruiter would come around on Saturdays and pick them up from your house. And I was like, yeah, that's that much time he's not at home.
Well, welcome back.
So yeah. So he would do that. And then he graduated. And he graduated in May of 2017 and left for Marine Corps boot camp in July of 2017. And we had Harvey, and of course he was gone for that. He wasn't home. And then in October, we were on our way to San Diego to watch him graduate at the Marine in boot camp.
So if you're like me, a bit controlling, sad for him to join the military, or were you fully prepared for it because it's what he wanted for a while?
It's what he wanted. And so I supported him. Older half brother is a Marine, still is today. And at the time, the person that I was dating, because I was already divorced from their dad, the person that I was dating was also a former Marine. They just knew what he wanted to do. And that's what he wanted to do. And who am I to say tell this 18-year-old kid who's bigger than I am that you can't do that? Your mom doesn't want you to do that.
Yeah. I don't have a problem saying they're going to do it anyway.
So,
No, I know you didn't say anything, but I'm asking how it felt. Like, how was it scary for you, or because you had your partner knew, you had experience with it? Was it just like, okay, were you just built to be a Marine mom? Because I think
it
some
was
people are probably
scary.
just built.
Yeah, it was scary. I remember going to my doctor and telling him I already have anxiety about how much anxiety I'm going to have. Like he's still at home, but I'm already I'm already thinking about, I'm going to be so anxious when he's gone. I'm going to be so anxious when he's gone. So my anxiety was having anxiety. And the only time in my almost 50 years that I've ever been on anything to help me with that. And then it was horrible. I didn't like it. It gave me horrible nightmares and I got off. So it was a very short time period. But, I love seeing him accomplish the goals that he wants to accomplish. He is now in what they call MARSOC. It's Marine something special, something.
Yeah.
Special. It's like special forces.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way this may not be real, but this is how I explain it to myself in my head. So the Navy has Navy SEALs, the Marines have MARSOC, the Army has the Rangers or whatever. It's their special forces. And it took a lot of work on his part. They have to go through what they call SEER training, which is survive, evade, resist, escape. And I don't know all the things that he had to go through because I've asked not to know. But like they have to survive on very little food, and they have to try to escape whatever scenario that they're in. They have to resist after they're captured.
Yeah.
And then they have to try to escape. So I don't remember how many days it was. It felt like a really long time. He went through this training and, there were days where he didn't know if it was day or night because of where they kept him. I might be breaking some rules here.
Yeah. We can edit it out.
But anyway, he made it through all that. And, I'm real proud of him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a man's job. He's got a man's job.
That's funny because
That's good.
that you say that. The other day we were on the way home from the Scarecrow Festival, and he called me on the speakerphone in the car, and Andrea was in the car with me, and she's like, that is the first time that I've like listened to him and was like, oh my God, he's a man.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you don't have that vision of that kid in your head anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, he's loving it and having the time of his life. He just shot a deer yesterday with his bow.
Nice.
So he likes to hunt when he's not
Yeah.
working. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
he's
And he did
doing
better
all
than
the
I did
things.
because let me just say, we went hunting yesterday and I shot 82 shots and hit one bird. One bird. Just one.
Oh,
I'll just send
goodness.
y'all the video of all these shotgun shells on the ground between me and Dwayne. One bird. We eat meat like this. So the fact that he got a deer is awesome.
You know, to do that, Sissy. So
Yeah.
he probably had
Yeah.
shot on you.
Yeah.
Around on that.
Yeah.
But very
But anyway, oh, that's great. So a couple of years later, Shelby was born. So now you got your daughter. So how different was raising Shelby from raising Seth? Because I find boys and girls to be vastly different.
Well, there's also the difference between that first child and second child. You know, the first child makes you think, man, I can do this.
Yeah.
That was kind of easy. That was
Yeah.
kind of easy. Shelby, you know, I feel like I, was a pretty shy kid. Even as a teenager, sure, around my friends, I was comfortable with and could let loose. But even as a young adult or a teacher, I was kind of shy and reserved. I don't really feel like I knew who I was as a person until I was in my 30s. Shelby matched my personality from the day she was born. I say we never went through a shy phase, but there were times where she was shy and I couldn't figure out why when she was in kindergarten. So she went to kindergarten with me at my school. I can remember them practicing for their graduation program, singing the songs on the risers, all the hand movements and the little dances. The day of kindergarten comes or kindergarten graduation comes and she is hiding, crouched down because she doesn't want people looking at her. We went through that in gymnastic, or I guess it was gymnastics or tumbling. She would go to practice all day long, but when it came time to perform like in front of people, didn't want to do it because people would look at her. We would stop sometimes on the way to school in the mornings and she would want something because I didn't cook breakfast. She wanted something from, the convenience store, some donuts or something. I had to go in because she didn't want anybody looking at her. But literally would demand or be the center of attention in every other area of her life. I never could figure it out. So I quit paying for all the things. I'm like, I'm not paying for you just to practice to do something. There's that performance there, all that. But yeah, she, from 14 to about 18, I wasn't sure which one of us it was going to be. Whether it was going to be me or whether it was going to be her.
Put the gloves on, Seth.
I will say on that other side of 18, because she turned 18 in January. Well, she's 20 now, but her senior year, she turned 18. It kind of started clicking, I think, a little bit for her. But, I had been single most of her high school years. Also, during that time, I have always tried to keep in the back of my head, don't be like your mother. Don't be like your mother. Don't be like your mother. Because of the fact that my mom was single and I became her companion, I was bound and determined not to do that to Shelby. There were times where I worried, am I letting her leash be too long? Because I'm trying to stay so far away from this, am I going so far in the opposite direction? But I also think that, when I was in high school, I don't really remember. I remember my mom coming to a few of the football games and watching the band. But other than that, that was in softball. She would come to my softball games. But I feel like once I was able to drive myself, she kind of quit coming.
Yeah.
And I get that. I was number 6, and all 6 of us were in band. Well, I think one of us wasn't. Out of the 4 that were in band, 3 of us had Miss Cleveland. Liz was the only one who Miss Cleveland wasn't there yet, but Kevin, maybe it was Kevin that wasn't in band. So then it was Ken and Kirk, and then Julie and myself all had Miss Cleveland. But, number 6, yeah, if I had 6 kids, I ain't going. We're probably not even signing up for that. You can play some ball in the backyard.
Yeah. That's funny.
So,
Because, by the time we got through high school, we were in high school at Summer Creek for 9 years in a row. That's a lot.
yeah,
That's a lot of high school.
yeah. Shelby did cross country like in middle school, but the thing that was great about that is her middle school was right next door to my elementary school. Like literally, you can
Yeah.
walk from place to place. And so if she had events there, it was just right next door. We didn't have to go home. And, we would, if you need clothes for that thing tonight, you'd be sure and pack them and bring them with you because we're not going home. Because
Yeah.
also at the time we lived in Katy.
Yeah.
And I was driving into Cypress or almost to 290 every day along Barker Cypress. So, whatever we needed, we were taking with us because we weren't coming home. And then, in high school, she had expressed an interest in doing ag and being an FFA. And I supported that, even though it was still a lot of work on a parent, even when your child is in. I know that you know that, Dorcas.
Yeah.
I know that you know that.
Christmas Day, you're cleaning out cow pens, and hurricanes, you're driving to field cow. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did pigs. We did pigs all 4 years. It was just what we got comfortable with and kind of what we knew. So we did that. And I was never usually you would think, I'm so worried about her getting a driver's license. I don't know if I want them to get their driver's license, but I was so ready for her to get that driver's license. So I didn't have to go feed that pig anymore on Saturdays and Sundays. It's not that I was necessarily doing the feeding, but I was doing the driving. And, that Saturday morning and Saturday night and Sunday morning and Sunday night for 4 years from October to February, it was a lot. But I equated that to being in band. She
Yeah.
didn't want to do band. And
Yeah.
it wasn't about band or being in band. It was about the group of kids that you're with and developing those friendships because they're people you see every day for 4 years.
Yeah.
And, she
Yeah,
did.
you and I
And-
probably saw more of each other in that time than I saw Mom and Lydia.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm. Also because we played the same instrument.
Yeah,
And
that's true
then
too.
we did flags together too at the
Yeah,
same
you're
time.
right.
So
Yeah, we did do that.
yeah,
It all survived.
we we survived. We survived her senior year, or right before her senior year, I guess is when I met Eric. They immediately liked each other. He could handle her personality, which I was always worried about because, the last relationship that broke up before that in 18 was really, I'm not ever going to say it was over, Shelby, because that's not true.
Yeah.
It was just a difference in opinions on how to parent. And I did not agree with how things were happening. And I didn't feel like he was listening to me when it came to what a girl needs. He had raised all boys prior to that, and it just wasn't working out. Of course, there were a lot of other things. There were a lot, but that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. We went through a lot of stuff with that, and I just, it just wasn't anymore, which was probably the best thing that ever happened to us. He is, he is who he is. He's good. He was good to the kids. He was never anything but good to the kids. It was just a huge, huge difference in opinion on how parenting should happen. So my kids still talk to him, and I'm okay with that. He was a positive influence in their lives to a degree, but when it was time, it was time. So,
Yeah.
And then
So
I
how
was
long
single.
were you were single? Look, see, in a way, you got divorced from Toby, and then how long were you in that relationship?
So Toby and I got divorced in 2010. I didn't meet sleep until 2012, and then we were together until 2018.
Yeah. Okay. That's a
Um,
while. Yeah.
yeah, and there were a
And
lot
I think
of
each of those relationships, it's I think they're integral because, like you said, he was great for getting through the time with Seth moving off, and everything comes for a purpose. And some people serve a purpose,
Some people
then
service.
not. Yeah, a season. People serve a
season.
season.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
yeah.
it's no more. So, how long were you single after
But
after that?
From 2018 until 2021.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you
yeah,
had a little while you were swinging single.
Do what? What'd you say?
yeah, you're now a fella.
Well, that's a fun story.
Listen, Lydia got hers off Facebook, so go ahead. Facebook
Well,
Market. That's what I
all
keep
right.
saying.
Well,
She got hers off Facebook Market.
Facebook Market.
Yeah.
So he was a content creator on TikTok. Probably hadn't been doing it for very long when I started following him. I think it was probably during COVID, and I started following him. And he had shared a video of him and his oldest son, and his oldest son had a Cy Woods jersey on. And so I messaged him, and I was like, are you from Cyprus? And he explained in the message, he said, no, but my kids live in Cyprus. I'm from Uvalde. And I was like, okay. And then I think I followed him on Facebook, or he followed me on Facebook, and I followed him on Snapchat, or he followed me on Snapchat. I don't even remember. And one night I had gone out with some friends and to a place in Cyprus called the Barn. There's a restaurant called the Frio Restaurant, and then they have like a little music venue behind that called the Barn. And two of my friends were playing just on their guitar singing. And so I had gone up there to meet some other friends, and I put it on my Snap story, that I was watching Josh Norman and Stephen Marshall. And he messaged or responded to it and said, hey, where is that? Or where are you? And I responded back, said, I'm at this place called the Barn. I don't know, 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour go by. And I saw that I got another snap from him, and he said, where are you? And I was like, still at the Barn. But then he was like, no, where are you?
Yeah.
And I was like, so he likes to say I left him on red at that point. Well, really, I was just like, who's this person? But anyway, so I'm standing like kind of behind me, and I was like, I guess I should get up and go say hi. So I went back there and said hello, and we kind of hung out in the back talking for a little while. And then when Steven and Josh finished playing, Eric and I went in at the back, like outside, kind of just to talk. And I don't know, we talked for, I don't know, maybe hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I left. He didn't even walk me to my car. And I don't remember if it was that night or the next night. He asked to take me to dinner. And so we went to dinner. And I don't know, we got done with dinner pretty early. And he was like, well, what else is there to do? So he had moved here from Uvalde at that point because his kids were here. After he and his wife got divorced, she moved here, and he was making the drive back and forth from Uvalde to Cyprus, and got tired of that. So he moved to Cyprus. Actually, just a couple of weeks after we started seeing each other, he was going to be moving back to Uvalde for a different job. And that was like a whole thing too. But going back to that night, yeah, I mean, it was like, we went to dinner. We found something else to do after that. There was a fight going on. It was that night that Conor McGregor broke his ankle. I'll never forget that.
Yep.
But we were watching that, and it's just kind of funny. It feels like we haven't been apart since then. Shortly after that, he moved back to Uvalde. He was like coming back on the weekends and stuff. And then right after that, like we literally met the 1st of July, and then my mom died about the middle of August. And so he was there during that time, he was at the apartment when, my sister-in-law texted and was telling us about my mom. We all knew that it was coming. It was within the hours, basically. He was there for that, never left my side. Shortly after that, 2 weeks after that, my brother-in-law died. So my brother-in-law had cancer, but like he was doing good. It was treatable. They were, everything looked great. The day of my mom's viewing, my sister had to take him to the emergency room and he never left. I mean, he left the emergency room, but not the hospital. He had gotten COVID. And so we lost, my mom and my brother-in-law within 2 weeks. That was probably one of the toughest things that my family's ever been through.
Yeah. And that's your oldest sister. Was that Liz? No.
No, it wasn't Liz's husband.
Yeah.
It was Julie, the one that's just older than I am.
Yeah. Okay. So relatively young.
Yeah. And Julie has 2 kids. She has Justin and Jordan. And then she has a granddaughter named JoJo. Her name is Joanna, but they call her JoJo. But yeah, that was probably the toughest thing that my family had ever been through. I've lost a nephew before. So my mom had lost one grandson to a horseback riding accident was the initial cause, but he lived for several years after that, but traumatic brain injury. And that was probably up until losing my mom and my brother-in-law was probably the toughest time.
Yeah.
But with your mom, that's expected, that's anticipated. Yeah. She lived a full life. My brother-in-law was a little different. That one was hard.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I do remember that happening for y'all. What do you think got you through it? Just your family together? How is Julie doing? Is she doing okay?
She's doing good. She sold the house that they lived in. It was a really big house with a pool and was just kind of the central place that everybody came. We had Seth's going away party there. Back in 2017, we had Shelby's graduation party there. We had Eric and I got married in Vegas, and
that was
some
a good story
people
too, because you just called us and said we're going to Vegas.
I was like, hey, we're on our way to Vegas. Eric I say Eric conspired. Yeah. I don't think he had anything to do with it, but my Andrea and some other friends conspired to throw a like a wedding reception there for family and friends. So that was at Julie's house. Everything we kind of did family wise was either at Liz's house or Julie's house. If it was during the summer, it was definitely at Julie's house because she had the pool. But yeah, so I never intended on getting married again. Back to Eric, I never intended on getting married again. He didn't either. His experience in getting divorced, all that from his first wife was not a great one. We even laughed and joked and said, we're never getting married. And he'd be like, fine. I'd be like, fine. Yeah. We're both okay. We're good with that. And then I don't know where we were. And I don't even remember the conversation. He remembers it. And somebody said something about us getting married. And apparently I said, well, I wouldn't be mad about it. And so kind of went from there. We were going to take a trip. He called me on December 18th, I remember, or sent me a text. He was working out of town and said, hey, let's go to Vegas for Christmas. And I was like, okay. And he's like, let's get married while we're there. And I was like, okay. So we did. We left, I don't know, December 24th. And we drove all the way to, I can't remember the name of the town that's right outside of the Grand Canyon. Anyway, spent the night there, got up Christmas morning, drove into the Grand Canyon. It was snowing, not heavy snow or anything like that, but snow had set in the canyon and it was beautiful. We spent a couple of hours there. I had been to the Grand Canyon before, but still every time, it doesn't matter how many times you go back. If you've never been,
I've
it
never
needs
been.
to be a place that you go. It needs to be a place.
Yeah.
And then we drove the rest of the way to Vegas. It was Christmas Day. We went to the courthouse because they're open every day of the year for 24 hours.
Nice.
So on Christmas Day, we picked up our marriage license that we had applied for online already, and then got married on the 28th and started our drive home on the 30th, I believe, and ended up in Fort Worth at the stockyards going to see Randy Rogers for New Year's Eve. And if you know anything about Eric and I, that was the perfect wrap up to a whirlwind of a week. And I don't think we've stopped since then. He loves to travel. he loves music just as deeply as I do, and the artists that we follow, I won't say, well, pretty much every vacation is somehow centered around something musically that we want to go see. We didn't even go on our honeymoon for almost a year after we got married because we wanted to go on a specific cruise. Not Carnival, but the Royal Caribbean cruises, the ones that have the Texas country music cruise, and they were going to have several of our favorite performers. And so we held off and didn't take our honeymoon for almost a year. So we got married in December and our honeymoon was in October. So, but we didn't care because it was about, what we wanted to do and when we wanted to do it.
Yeah, I think this is also a fun phase because Dwayne and I are having more fun. Just fun. Just fun.
Well,
We're laughing more. And I know, you're just starting out with him, but that's just, I feel like it's just, even me, I've remembered how to laugh. Just laugh and have a good time. It feels like I didn't do that forever. And it just feels like, I don't know if it's just this age thing or, phase or whatever, but it feels
well, I
more
also
freeing.
think that, he has 3 kids. He has 2 boys and a girl. And now when we first started dating, the boys were still in high school. Now they're graduated. Dylan works in Midland for the same company that Eric does. They have different jobs, but, and then, we didn't have to raise kids together. Addie is in middle school. She's a 6th grader, and he gets her, usually one weekend out of the month because he's only here 2 weekends out of a month because he works 2 weekends there and then he's home for 2 weekends. So one of those weekends is typically his weekend with Addie. And so, we didn't have to go through that raising kids phase together. When he's home, it's just the 2 of us most of the time, unless Shelby's here, with us, or if Addie's here, it's just the 2 of us. And so there's a lot to be said about who you are and what you can do when you're not being a mom. I mean, isn't that the whole premise of this show?
Yeah. Well, it is. It is figuring out who you are, outside of just that title or outside of who you perceive that title. Because there's so much that I did as a mom that, honest to God, I just did because I thought it was the right thing to do, but it's not necessarily what I agreed with or what I should have done because I didn't know who I was, that you're figuring out now. That's what I mean. I could have done that better because I didn't necessarily want to. I just did it because I thought it was on the checklist of things I should have been doing.
And I think in the whole scheme of things, when something is a really big deal in the moment, you think it's a really big deal. And then it turns out that's not a really big deal.
Yeah,
and I think we have the knowledge and wisdom of that now. We didn't then because little things seem like such a big deal. But now we know why our parents probably thought that little things were such a big deal.
Yeah.
But, I will be a better grandmother than I was a mother.
Yeah, I'm going to be a good neat grandma. Mom's a great grandma.
We're always going to have McDonald's money.
Yeah, going to have McDonald's money. Yeah, I know the kids are going to freak out because we're having Briar's birthday here on Saturday. She's 2. And I called Kaylin today. I go, hey, I said, you didn't rent a bouncy house, did you? And she goes, no, I was thinking about renting a bouncy house. I said, don't. I bought one today. It'll be here Wednesday. She goes, you bought a bouncy house? I go, yeah, I got a big one. It's just like 6 feet tall. It's just 30. I said, it's $200. It's fine. She goes, you bought a bouncy house. Yeah, she can use it every day. We don't have to rent one.
Right.
We own one for the girls who outgrew it. We have one in the garage.
You have a bouncy house in the garage?
We had one for the girls.
A big one?
It's not a huge one like you rent, but yeah, it's in the garage. Yeah.
Oh, dang. Well,
I bought one. Now you have to.
Yeah. I'm better than.
But yeah, she called. She said, you bought a bouncy house? Yeah, I did today. So, yeah, I'm much better. Because why? Because it's fun. We're going to have a good time.
That's right.
Older than Eric, right? By a couple of years?
I am 6 years older than he is. 6.5.
He's like, I'm 5 years older than Jared. My friend Shane is 5 years older than her husband, April. And so we've all been on the show. It's like, yeah, you get yourself a younger man. You ain't got to raise him.
I've said it before. There was sometime we saw you, I guess when you and Eric were dating, and I looked at you and I was like, what are you doing? Because you look so good. And you go, oh, I'm using this collagen powder. And I'm dating somebody younger. I was like, well, I guess I got to get collagen powder because I can't date anybody younger. You just say, I'm taking the collagen powder now.
Yeah. Like, I mean, the collagen's good. The collagen's
Yeah.
good.
Well, that's so funny because, like, I mean, obviously, Eric has a big social media presence. He's got a big following on TikTok. And can we say, like, what? I mean, okay, let me do it this way. Dorcas, I don't know if you remember this, but like, I remember seeing a video of him because he
Mhm.
did one of the Yellowstone type
Yeah.
stuff. What's his name? What's the character's name? Rip. Yes. He did like a lot of, it's proud of you, by the way. But lack of a better word, cosplay is kind of how I do it in my head, like, Rip cosplay. And I
Yeah.
remember he had a video of it or whatever, and I'm not a huge follower of the show, but I knew a little bit. And I remember showing Dorcas this video. I was like, this guy looks just like Rip. Da da da. And she's like, that's Molly's boyfriend. And I was like, yes, attorney for you, 100%. I had no idea who he was, and he's just one of those things because like the algorithm, if you know people and you on
Brings you
Facebook,
back.
and they
Yeah.
just because probably it was probably on Facebook first, like you may know because I knew you or Dorcas or whatever, but it was like that's Molly's boyfriend. Like
Yeah.
it is, he wins, she wins, Molly
Well,
wins.
he lost it. TikTok took his account.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
I
wasn't sure
understand that.
what's up with TikTok doing that. I don't
He
understand.
had
No,
almost had almost 500,000 followers, and then poof, it was just gone. So he had started another one, but he probably has a lot of followers now, but it's not anything like 500,000 followers. And he doesn't really he's got some of his old videos on there, but he doesn't do it as much as he used to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's definitely a seasonal thing, and it's got to be fun. I mean, we're trying to get stuff out there, but there just is we can't figure it out. So it's just about
yeah.
giving up on it. Now it's just for scrolling, time killing. Um,
for that thing. And again, it goes back to the thing. It's hard to put yourself out there and put
Yeah.
yourself vulnerable, whether you're just telling your story or do something just fun for entertainment or, talking about stuff. So, props to him and
He's
anybody.
also just a very naturally funny person. So, although a lot of his videos were him dressed up as Rip, not all of them were. And he's funny. He makes you laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. And I'm really, look, I really am happy for you because I know your history with, previous relationship. And I always think of you as such a good person and you work hard and you, like I said, you do this job that not people do and you've raised these kids and they're both really fantastic. And your son's saving the world. They deserve to be happy. So I'm really happy. I was really happy when you called and texted and said, we're getting married. It's like, oh,
Yeah. I
so
mean,
we're
it's
really
one of
happy.
those
I'm really
things in life that you never thought would happen for you.
Yeah.
That those are things that happen to other people, right? But no,
living the dream.
not mad about it.
Yeah.
Not mad about
Well,
it.
good. Yeah.
Can we ask at the end of all these stuff, like, what do you want when it comes to motherhood and your babies and whatever? What do you want your legacy to be when they think about you, what you leave?
That's a good question. Shelby and I were just having a conversation the other night. She was talking about, I don't know, she was talking about all that one house that they always went to, growing up. I don't even think that was really the conversation, but in my head, I was thinking, did I not do that for y'all? Because that was my goal. Now, I know they didn't always come over, and there were times because I didn't ever really have friends over. Because I can hear my mom saying now, I've had kids in my house all day. I don't want any more kids. I don't want any more kids in the house. I don't want any more kids in the house. I remember I had a slumber party. It must have been in middle school. Dorcas, I think you were there. I'm sure Melissa was probably there. Probably the only slumber party I ever had or really ever had people spend the night, and somebody got mustard on the couch.
Yeah.
And I thought my mom was going to come unglued. But, also now I know she probably worked really, really hard for that couch.
Yeah.
Because it was a nice couch, because it was upholstered. Like she had it done. Like the couch matched the drapes, matched the wingback chair, all the things. And so I wanted to be the house where the kids could come and be comfortable. I don't think I probably did a lot of that as much for Seth, but for Shelby, and she would have her friends over and they would spend the night. But we, I was kind of at a disadvantage to be that person because we lived in Katy and she went to school in Cypress. After I sold my house, we just kind of ended up down the street, felt down the street, but it was Barker Cypress and it was Katy versus down the street, Barker Cypress and Cypress. But it was far enough out to where it wasn't convenient for the kids. It wasn't a convenient place for them to all gather. But I also tried to remember if Shelby asked if somebody could come over, if I said no, there was that guilt of, you sound like your mom. You sound like your mom. Don't do it. Let them come over, So I probably didn't do it as often as I should have, but I just wanted, again, going back to, I didn't want to be like that, but did I go too far this way? But I don't think I did. But I want them to remember or think about me in the sense that I hope they know that I did everything that I could have done. I broke myself down to, not having any money in the bank at times to give them what they needed and what they wanted, and would do it again if I had to. And them to know that I loved them. I'm trying to think, have I broken the law for either of them?
You though.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not taking it back. I'm
Yeah.
not saying sorry.
I mean, I hope I don't get caught, but somebody better have the bail money. Somebody better come with the bail money.
Well, we got you. We always got you.
Yeah. So
There's that
no,
video- sorry,
go ahead. Go ahead.
that video, where they asked all these mothers, and you can tell they're like, certain mothers, like, would you kill for your kids? And they're like, no, no. And then you get to like the Southern mothers, they're like, absolutely, 100%, I would kill for my child. And how could, like, I only have step babies, and I would unalive for them. The better
Yeah.
word.
I mean, if you're giving me a reason, then clearly don't give me a reason. Don't come for me unless I call for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I saw a video today. I think he was in the military and he said, I killed people I didn't know for my country, for people I didn't know. Yeah. I killed. Yeah. 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 Well,
I'm always thinking about that true crime lady who literally, like, a man had hurt her child, and you can figure out what kind of hurt I'm talking about. I think it was, and she walked up in the courthouse with a pew pew and just unalived him right in the courtroom. And like, you can watch the video because they have it on camera. And I literally had this reaction. I'm like,
I mean, that's kind of like a mic drop, isn't it? The same
yeah.
thing. Like
Yeah.
you just drop it, throw your hands up. Here I am.
And then
yeah,
you
she
think,
was like in her trench coat, like,
and she's like, you get to now take care of me and feed me for the rest of my life.
3 meals a day, college education.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Okay. Well, that seems like a good
Good thing, a good note to end on.
all right, guys. Well, thank you so much, Molly. Thank you for joining. It's always fun talking to you guys, and
It was
it's
so
good.
fun.
And for everybody listening at home, thank you so much for coming back for another week. We'll be back next week with another episode. Be sure to like us on social media, leave us a rating or whatever, anywhere that you get your podcast, and you can check us out at themotheryouKnow.com. We'll see you next week.
Bye.